is because the position and the motion we are moving is of a member who continues sitting in this House after the motion. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is important that that person who is going to continue sitting, who is holding a position, continues sitting in this House after a motion of this nature has been moved. And that is the position of a Deputy Speaker. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, it's not a coincidence that this motion is being moved by the leaders. We are warning ourselves, me included, that the seat I occupy as Minority Whip, that seat belongs to the coalition. And I must, in all cases, in the trust bestowed upon me by that coalition, continue advocating for the obligations, rights, and wishes of that coalition. Once that trust is done, Mr. Speaker, there is nothing this House can do to a person who has lost trust of his political party. It sounds like a death knell, but it's a fact. The premium, Mr. Speaker, for these positions we occupy is loyalty to the cause. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, our friend, Professor Kindiki, finds himself in this position. Mr. Speaker, it's not also a coincidence that Article 106 put such a high threshold. And I want to mention that as I sit, because I will not get into the details that Senator Kangata did, because a lot of us are not party to those issues. And I strongly believe those are not issues that all of us ought to get into. Professor Kithure Kindiki and any person occupying that position under Article 106, Mr. Speaker, must be able to show that he has the confidence of the House. And that is the reason there's a 2/3 membership. And that membership, Mr. Speaker, is a membership of the majority and minority. It's a simple thing. Votes of confidence all over the world, Mr. Speaker, are not personal. So nobody carries a personal agenda against Professor Kindiki. None of us, Mr. Speaker, are questioning his competence. None of us, Mr. Speaker, including myself, is conducting a trial. I would have great difficulties if we were conducting a trial. Since we are not conducting a trial, we did not conduct any recruitment of either you, the Speaker, or the Deputy Speaker, Mr. Speaker. You were elected politically. You were brought here politically. You persuaded the majority to elect you politically. And therefore, you must persuade the majority to continue remaining in office politically. There's no other question. There's no middle ground, and that is the end of it. Mr. Speaker, to say that this is momentous, it is. We have rarely had a motion of this nature or even passed any constitutional motion that requires 2/3. The fact that this motion has reached this far should tick the mind of Professor Kindiki. What is it that you have done to this membership that would cause so many of them to allow this motion to reach at this stage? Now I'm talking to your conscience, because these decisions are about your conscience. It's not omissions or commissions. It's confidence in this House. You will sit with us here after this motion, whether you're removed or not. But ask yourself these questions as you go along. The overtures you are offered, Senator Kindiki, should have informed your decision. Since you didn't take them, the vote of confidence will be taken, and you will see it for yourself what it means, Mr. Speaker, to have a motion of this nature. Therefore, allow me to quote Churchill, because this is politics. And politics has no form. And this is what he had to say. And I say this To Professor Kindiki, my friend, politics is the ability to foretell what is going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year, and to have the ability to explain why it didn't happen. You know what has befell you, Professor Kindiki. I support the motion. Thank you.
Honorable Senators.
Sorry, I second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question, which is that the Senate resolves that Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki, EGAJ MP, be removed from the office of the Deputy Speaker of the Senate. Senator Cherargei. He's coming. What's your point of order, Senator Rose?
Mr. Speaker, I think this debate may raise a lot of interest, and I'm just wondering if there is a time limit on the debate, Mr. Speaker.
How do people?
Mr. Speaker, how do I make my interest known to you if I want to contribute, Mr. Speaker, to the motion? Is it by pressing?
Yeah, you'll press. You'll press. Then I will note on my paper.
When we press, Mr. Speaker, the mic comes. It doesn't show.
Yeah, it comes. I will note.
Okay.
3 minutes. Except the leaders, I'll give the leaders 5 minutes each. Senator Cherargei. Yeah,
okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I've had my brother, Senator Kangata, who is a State House appointee of the majority side, saying that our brother, Senator, Deputy Speaker, Senator.
What's your point of order, Senator Stewart Mazayo?
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, umetuambia katika uamuzi wako ya kwamba tusitumie maneno ambayo yatakuwa aidha yanadharau ama yanaweza kuudhi mtu. Na mimi ninavyoelewa ni kwamba, tafadhali Murkomen, kama mimi naongea, it's only fair if you keep quiet. I'm on a point of order. Bwana Spika, taratibu ni kwamba, na tunavyoelewa, Senator Kangata ni seneta wa Murang'a. Lakini sasa tukiambiwa kwamba Senator Kangata ni either ni mfanyikazi ama ni mtumishi wa State House, hiyo sisi hatuelewi. Kama ni hivyo, basi ni mtu ambaye hatakani kuketi hapa. Kama anaketi State House, amekuja kufanya nini ndani ya bunge la Senate? Na alichaguliwa na watu wa Murang'a. Kwa hiyo mimi nauliza tu, je, ni sawa sawa ikiwa ndugu yangu, mdogo wangu ambaye ni rafiki yangu, Cherargei, anaweza kutumia lugha kama hiyo?
Sio sawa sawa. Nataka niulize. I want to appeal. Your honorable members, please don't force me into, taking action that I should not take. You can still communicate, you can convey your message without necessarily getting into all those unnecessary jargon and whatever. Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think he misunderstood me, and I can see Senator Kangata is excited because it knows the weight of being referred as a State House appointee. Because as a majority leader, we never sat to elect him. So I'm told it was through chai and mandazization that
Senator Cherargei, order, Senator. No. So Senator Cherargei, please, you are out of order. Please, you are out of order. Let's not get into those. Please, make your point, please.
But Mr. Speaker, you need also to protect me because I can see people.
No, but I'm protecting you. That's why I'm.
Then
Don't.
you should, Mr. Speaker, you should allow me to be listened to. I can see people shouting across the aisle, especially people.
Make your
Mr.
point,
Speaker,
Senator Chararigei.
in the next few minutes, I want to say this. One is that I oppose this motion because it is illegal, it is immoral, it is even ungodly. Professor Kithure Kindiki not only has distinguished himself as a legal scholar, but has ably made rulings that have been even referred by other jurisdictions. Professor Kindiki, having served as the majority leader of then TNA and URB, and now as the deputy speaker of this house, has done very well. This political conmanship and persecution and scheming that continues, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, across the political
What's your
majority
point of order,
side,
Senator?
Mr. Speaker, we are all being listened to. And Mr. Speaker, you have heard Cherargei say that we are discussing political conmanship, an illegal and immoral motion. Mr. Speaker, if we are if we allow one member to talk like that, would I be in order to also say that you will expand the debate and we talk about others' immorality? Would it be okay if we engage in such verbiage? Mr. Speaker, I request that you enforce your ruling that will be of decorum, because if the other side starts, or some people start talking the way they are doing, we have some very hot-blooded members on either side, and this thing is going to be nasty, and it's going to be shameful to the House.
Senator Cherargei, I want to caution you for the last time that there are statements that you can make in political rallies, funerals, or other places. This is a house of respect and integrity. Please make your point and stick to language that is parliamentary. I'm asking you.
Mr. Speaker, what I was just simply saying is that this moral does not meet even the threshold of principles of natural justice. Professor Kindiki, despite the fact that they are leveling accusations, I have heard even, it is shocking even to this country, that the stature of Senator Kangata can challenge your rulings. It doesn't mean who sits in that seat. Even speaker panelists who sit there and make rulings, they are sanctified. Those rulings are very serious. So it has exposed to country that there is a specific way of ensuring that they persecute individuals based on political affiliation or inclination for the expediency. And I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, sir, that if this House makes either reason, either to retain or remove Professor Kithure Kindiki, it will determine the future of this House as a Senate and as Parliament. And if today Professor Kithure Kindiki is being prosecuted and removed as the Deputy Speaker of the Senate of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, sir, if it goes ahead and we remove him, then we will lack both moral and legal and legislative roles that we have had as a House. Mr. Speaker, it's so disappointing that people, even I chair the legal, courtesy of the majority side, but that one is not a privilege, it is a right. Why do we make it that members who sit in leadership position appear that it's the privilege and prerogative of the party? It is not. And that is why as Jubilee will not allow impunity, worship of demigods within the party to continue, Mr. Speaker, sir.
What's your point of order, Senator Haniri?
Mr. Speaker, I want you to make a ruling on this because I know for sure that all motions that come on the floor of this House are approved by the Speaker of the House. The Honorable Senator Fernandi has made an allegation that the motion being debated now is illegal and immoral. Mr. Speaker, if we leave this on the record of this House, then it will mean that the Speaker of the Senate approved an illegal and immoral motion and presided over the same. Mr. Speaker, I think it is absolutely important that the member withdraws those words so that they're expunged from our records. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I want to state clearly that we are not discussing the qualifications, the integrity of my age mate, Senator Kithure Kindiki. We have been told clearly that Kindiki was sponsored to this position by a party called Jubilee because they had confidence in him. They have since lost confidence in him, the sponsoring party. We are not debating his integrity. his capabilities. We are not. We are saying the party that sponsored him says that they have lost confidence in him. So is he in order to start debating Professor Kithure Kindiki's integrity?
Senator Cherargei, I want to appeal to you that irrespective of what your emotions are, please remember that what some of the things you're saying really border on challenging the office of the Speaker. So can you wind up and so that we are able to move?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think I clarified that this motion in itself, I think my good neighbor was not listening, is that does not even adhere to principles of natural justice. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of confidence of the party, I can confirm to this House and Kenyans and 8 million plus Jubilee members across the country that we have never, as the senators of majority, either sat either virtually through Zoom meeting or any other form or in person to endorse any changes that we have lost confidence in Professor Kithure Kindiki as Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a party, we will not allow some of us who are in Jubilee that these issues of impunity and political witch hunt should be prosecuted in a specific way. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge my colleagues. I can see across the aisle that this decision is not about the individualism. This decision is about the future of this House. You know, this House is facing a lot of dangers, Mr. Speaker. And I can confirm to you, if we allow this impunity to go on and use rubber stamp as the minority side, if this continues to happen, Mr. Speaker, I can confirm to you that it is not going to stop here. You will be giving license to the party owners from wherever you come so that they can continue purging you politically. And for us, we are saying a luta continua. I oppose this motion in loudest terms possible. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chila yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Jubilee is the organization that the public gave the mandate to run this nation. And in order for Jubilee to run this nation, Jubilee has vested their trust in one leader, President Uhuru Kenyatta. The leader of Jubilee also happens to be the CEO of the nation. Us who are on this side, our work is to persuade Jubilee to deliver to our people and oppose Jubilee when we think that Jubilee is transgressing. Now, Mr. Speaker, in order for our people to receive services, we want a functional Jubilee. So if Jubilee has come to this House and claimed, and we believe them, that their functionality is being affected by any person they think is disloyal, that if that person was withdrawn from their rank, then they would deliver to us. That has persuaded me, and I beg to support this motion.
Senator Kihika. Yeah, in the meantime, I don't see any here. Senator Ochilo, not Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, the Jubilee Coalition has told us that they've lost confidence in one of their members who has served this House diligently as a Deputy Speaker. The question is whether the House agrees with the Jubilee Coalition. Does the House have confidence in Kithure Kindiki? And that's the reason why this decision could not be taken at the parliamentary group meeting at State House or wherever it was taken. That decision has been brought to us. And it is now upon us to reflect and make that decision, a decision that will not break this House. Mr. Speaker, Professor Kindiki Kithure, the man, is a fine gentleman. I have followed him in many aspects of his life. He went to Lenana School, and I went there after him. He went to Moi University, I went there after him. He came to the Senate, and I came to the Senate after him. Today his head is on the chopping block. I hope that I will not follow him there. But I want to encourage Professor Kindiki to go back to the scriptures that he's very fond of and reflect on the story of Pontius Pilate, given the responsibility to make a decision between Barabbas, the common thief, and Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I have always asked myself, What happened to Barabbas after he was released? Nobody knows what happened to Barabbas. He went into oblivion. But Jesus Christ, who was crucified, everybody remembers him. Professor Kindiki, you have served us for the duration that you have done. You have served us well. Your party has lost confidence in you. That is a point at which we say that the center cannot hold and things fall apart. The future is bright. You will continue being a member with us here in case the House also resolves it has no confidence in you. But I must say that while he sat on that chair, he made certain rulings, certain precedents that have strengthened this House. Mr. Speaker, let us finish this thing so that we can go back to the fight against COVID, fight against poverty, and let us set a good example for county assemblies to emulate. We have been blaming our assemblies for leadership changes every other day. Let us not degenerate to the level that we have been condemning in the assemblies. Mr. Speaker, because the center cannot hold, because things have fallen apart, I support the motion.
Senator Susan Kihika.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I first wanted to talk, it was more of a point of order, but since it takes quite a while to get here, I'll just do my contribution to the motion. But also for the record, it's important that I correct that the minority leader of the House, Senator James Orengo, misled the House. He misled the House when he stated that when he brought a motion back in '96 against Kaparo, that he did not give any grounds or any reasons for the removal, for the censure. And I have that answered here in front of me, and it is clear that he gave grounds. So it's a travesty, and it is just immoral that we have a motion in this House here today to remove the very distinguished Senator, Professor Kindiki, without having any grounds. It's also very clear from the standing orders, Mr. Speaker. The Standing Order 96, Paragraph 4, no senator shall impute improper motive or any other senator or to a member of the National Assembly except upon a specific substantive motion of which at least 3 days' notice has been given, calling in question the conduct of that senator or member of the Assembly. It's very clear here what we are doing. We are moving forward with the removal of the Deputy Speaker of this House. So it was imperative and important that the motion that was brought here today by the Senator from Murang'a have the grounds for removal. And as I stated earlier, when Senator Orengo did his to Kaparo, he stated, he had on the motion that the rulings Kaparo had made were in error. So it's inaccurate and improper to say that you can just bring a motion, Mr. Speaker, to remove the Deputy Speaker without any grounds. So I really needed that for the record, because we have become a House that's just a useless House, if I may use the word, but I know they will jump with standing orders. Okay, let me rephrase it.
Yeah, yes, Senator Susan.
We have become a House that is controlled from other chambers, from other areas, from other places. And the most unfortunate thing is, myself growing up, some of the senators that I looked up to, who were the defenders of human rights and other things in this country, are now the ones that are presiding or helping move this madness forward, where you can have the removal of a very competent Deputy Speaker without any reasons. But anyway, I'm sure you all will do whatever you will do. You will vote whichever way you will vote, because you carry brief for whoever you carry brief for. But I stand here today to say that some of us, whether we are 2 or 5 or 10, we shall continue to fight on, and we shall not allow the dictatorship that this country is quickly just becoming a dictatorship. And unfortunately, Senator Orengo, you fought so many battles to get away from that. But thanks to you, we are quickly moving that direction. But it is okay. Maybe we shall have the third, maybe we shall move forward, and we shall be the ones to now lead this next part, in not just being part of the axis of evil that is happening here today. It also says a lot that as we call into question the competency, I don't know, because again, we had no grounds for this motion. I've heard the Senator of Muranga make some, in his moving notes, talk about a few things here, and others who we thought were such defenders of democracy stand up and try to have him just proceed. And it is because most of you cannot look at yourselves in the mirror, and that is why you do not want to have any reasons as you remove this very competent man. You just are carrying brief, and that's okay. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I oppose this motion.
There's a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Keika doesn't have a seat to take, so today we'll offend the rules. Mr. Speaker.
No, I can't sit. You said I can't sit where it doesn't say sit.
Order, senators. Continue in these extraordinary times. I will allow her to stand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I understand the passion and the manner in which Senator Kika is speaking. But Mr. Speaker, this is a house of rules, and certain things in our standing orders are being offended. Number one, when this house has been called useless, and the senator has said that she's rephrasing it, actually what should be done is withdrawing, because it cannot remain on the record of this house that a senator has expressed the uselessness of where she sits, because that speaks to many things. Number two, Mr. Speaker, when imputing improper motive by saying that the senators here who are leading this country into dictatorship, and the senators here actually were part of the axis of evil, Mr. Speaker, that also goes against our standing orders in what do you call it, imputing improper motive on colleagues. Mr. Speaker, while we allow the passionate expression of heart and whatever might be coming out, I urge you to ask that those words are withdrawn, because they will forever remain on the record of this House. But her opinions are rightfully her opinions, and she can express them, Mr. Speaker. I ask that you rule that our rules are followed with respect to those two issues that she has done.
I leave her to her conscience, because she serves this House. She's a member of this House, and she knows what. I leave it to her conscience. That's all that I can say.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So anyway, as we leave here today, whatever the decision that we shall make as a House, I oppose this motion. And let me say, as I sit or as I walk away, that Senator Kindiki, Professor Kindiki, has served this House with distinction. He is a man of honor in a House that does not value that. He is a man who is extremely competent, and I'm sure we shall not be able to see that as we move forward. But that's okay. That's the decision that we shall have to make here today.
Senator, your time.
1 minute. 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. I was interrupted with the many points of order.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is a motion that is quite vile, dishonorable, and I hope that in future we can focus on fighting corona, the poverty that is in our country, instead of hiding behind corona to use dictatorship to remove people from office. I oppose this motion. Thank you.
Senator Mwaura.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have known Professor Kithure Kindiki since the year 2005. When
what's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, when I rose and questioned what is going on, there is a very dangerous precedent that is being set, Mr. Speaker. Standing orders 96, 1, 2, and 3 are clear about content of speeches, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when a senator offends the standing order and we leave it to someone's conscience, Mr. Speaker, are we saying that then these standing orders are suggestions, or are we going to follow standing orders?
Senator Sakaja, I have made a ruling on that matter. What you are now doing is also challenging the Speaker, which is out of order. Senator Mwaura, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I knew Professor Kithure Kindiki way back in the year 2005. That time he was a doctor at Moi University, when we were working together on a project on human rights for people with disabilities with the York University. I'm sure Professor can remember that. And I greatly admired him. Later on, I could see him making commentaries on TV on various political and legal issues. And all of that, to the extent that therefore, in the 11th Parliament, we were able to meet in the House. And Professor Kindiki, if you see him on the floor of the House, you can see he's actually at peace, actually, with himself, because he has actually conducted himself in a very honorable manner. And he also has not forgotten his pedagogy, because when senators speak, he almost wants to award marks. He would say, well, very well, you've spoken very well here and there, just to show that actually he's still having his eyes on the academy. And Mr. Speaker, since I joined politics, I've come to see that politics really is the art of the possible, is who gets what, where, and how. In fact, it is, according to me, some form of amorphous formlessness. It is the informality that constitutes the formal. And so therefore, there are no really clear rules. Because, for example, there is no way you can explain how an individual A would vote for an individual B and not individual C. There is no guarantee, there is no threshold, it's just a choice. And again, in politics, there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies, only interests. Now, the late minority leader, Francis Nyenze, told me when I joined Parliament, that time we had CORD and the Jubilee coalition of TNA and URP, and CORD of Wiper, ODM, and Fort Kenya and others. And he told me that, Mwaura, within 6 months, you will start seeing people changing their political allegiances. These things we are calling here will change. And indeed, he was vindicated. It is the same thing that we are also seeing in this 12th Parliament. Interests have changed, and a lot have changed. And I would want to say, just for purposes of record and transparency, that some of us, as Senator Kangata alluded to, we are very much involved in ensuring that we do not come to this decision. And Senator James Orengo, you can bear me witness, and Senator Njeru Ndwiga and others. We really tried to ensure that indeed there is a pathway that would ensure that an alternative, that the party confidence on the part of Professor Kithure Kindiki is actually restored, is actually perpetuated, so that we can continue to enjoy his contributions and his presiding over this House. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, you agree that he's been very helpful to you. But having said that, I think there comes a time where decisions have to be made because there's a matter of procedure. It is actually true, Mr. Speaker, that there is always this question about how parliamentary positions are filled, whether a party has the right to de-whip a member from a committee or a position of privilege, because all of us who hold any position in a committee or the House leadership are a result of the numbers. It's a game of numbers. It's a game of you are actually placed, where you are supposed to be. And that is the case. But then when it comes to removal, it's always a question of, is there an independence of Parliament in that regard? So maybe in the future of our standing orders is something we want to canvass, because we are actually evolving democracy, to see to it that then you actually mediate that process. You interlocute that process so that then it is actually neater and you're able to do much more. So Professor Kindiki, as I conclude, because I can see the yellow line is there, I want to leave you with these words. In politics, your future allies are your current nemesis, and your current allies are your future detractors. In the end, what matters is that you arrived at your desired goal and position, and both friend and foe, ally and the alienated, we reckon you are fan in their flame. Keep going. Thank you.
Senator Kabaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity you've given me to also air my views with regard to these important motion. I won't repeat what other people have said. It's very interesting, and it is the very heavy heart that as humans being, we have to subject some of our colleagues to exigencies of the game of politics. I was just thinking that as a lawyer in this house, I've come to realize that what we've learned in School of Law and what we have taught in universities is not actually what happens in the parliament. In parliament, it's a different ball game. It's very interesting that a man of impeccable academic prowess, Professor of International Law, Professor Kindiki, has to sit here and be subjected to lectures by honorable senators, some who can also be students with the due respect. But what do we do? This has come to analogy which happened in South Africa sometimes, where a sitting president had to be recalled by his own political party. That was none other than Thabo Mbeki. That's the time I started to learn politics. And this is exactly what is happening here. It's not a question of academic meritocracy. It's not a question of professorship. Whether you went to ICC even to represent people, that's not the consideration here, Professor. This is the game of politics. And it's a question of numbers. When we are told also to append signatures, people, we also do what we call soul searching. Like in my case, as a senator of Machakos, I've taught with Professor Kindiki in various universities together, more so in particular, Kenyatta University. And I remember in 2013, both of us resigned to venture in this game of politics. Least did we know that things can fall apart. Very interesting. Professor Kindiki was lucky, 2013 you got the seat and you came to Senate. Kabaka, I didn't get it, somebody else got. But here we are today as friends. Because of the party politics, which is the hallmark of this game of politics. Because of party politics, Professor Kindiki, you happen to belong, lucky enough, you happen to belong to the greatest political parties and the ruling party, Jubilee. It has its own benefits, and it's the same benefit which you derived when pursuant of Article 106 to C, I mean 1B and C, which applied. You are elected as a position, not of the Senate, position of a deputy speaker, together with even the speaker or other speakers even in the other house, National Assembly, through the goodwill of the political party, which is Jubilee. So I don't see, in terms of politics, without putting moral turpitude, that absolutely the political party has a right to recall you. And if it has decided that they want to put somebody else, who are we? Who are we? It's a question of ganging numbers, and we put you, where was, when 1789 in French Revolution, the guy, I wish Senator Tangula was around as a great historian. He will tell you that a person who designed the guillotine, a guillotine, after he was the third person to be chopped. Absolutely. We are chopping you now, and I'm sure even in our side, I hear rumors we are also about also to be chopped. I know soon it will be Kabaka to be chopped, or Mutula or somebody else. So there is no, it is the right thing. In fact, if I were you, I would have even actually signed a memo to His Excellency the President, the party leader, and you should have exited longer than subjecting us to this afternoon game. I should be elsewhere
teaching my children how to do assignment. So I support, Mr. Speaker, next time if the guillotine come to Kabaka, so be it. Thank you. I support.
Senator Mazayo.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kuunga mkono kwa kusema na kuweza kumweleza.
A point of order. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Mr. Speaker, there's a concern about how we are wearing our masks. Could you please reiterate the rules that we must wear our masks and cover our noses? The public are watching, and I think what we are doing is what they should do out there when they're in the streets. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, let's, I know it's a bit uncomfortable, but let's try. Senator Mazayo.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, Kindiki ni rafiki yangu, ndugu yangu, ni shemegi yangu. Lakini kwa mambo ya siasa, nafikiria yeye amesoma zaidi vitabu mpaka kafika level ya kuwa profesa. Lakini kwa upande wa siasa nafikiria kidogo alinoga. Lakini hayo ya kijiri, mimi nataka kusema kwamba kuna filosofa mmoja aliyeishi zamani na yeye pia alikuwa msomi, alikuwa kitwa Micheveli. Na mimi nimekuwa kila siku nikisema hii kwamba ikiwa wewe umechaguliwa ama ikiwa wewe umeandikwa kazi, usiwe mwerevu kuliko yule bosi wako. Micheveli alisema hiyo katika mambo ya utawala na mambo ya madaraka, wanaita principles of power. Na vile vile ni kwamba ukiambiwa usiwe mwerevu kuliko bosi wako, wewe unaweza kuwa umesoma sana. Kama najua Profesa Kindiki amesoma sana, na pengine bosi wake hakufika elimu kama hiyo. Lakini sio sababu ya kwamba bosi akikwambia fanya hivi, wewe unakuwa unatumia akili yako. Mimi natoka katika chama cha ODM, na ni lazima nikiwa nitaheshimu, mtu wa kwanza lazima niheshimu ni Raila Amolo Odinga. Na alafu kitu cha pili ni lazima niheshimu pati yangu. Vile pati yangu inanielekeza ni lazima niangalie na nifate mkondo wake. Nikikosa kufata hiyo, basi ni kama ambaye mimi nataka kuachana na hicho chama na nitafute njia ya kwenda. Na kule nitakako kwenda sijui kama ni kuzuri ama ni kubaya. Manake wanasema ya kwamba unaweza kuacha kuzuri ukifikiria kule kuzuri ndio kuzuri zaidi, ukaenda kukuta ndio kubaya zaidi kuliko kule umetoka. Kwa hiyo mimi nataka tukusema ya kwamba ama kumpatia wasia ndugu yangu. Na nataka kumpatia wasia huu kwa imani kuu, na kwamba yeye afunge huu usia wangu kwenye vidole vyake, aitunze huu usia wangu kama mboni ya macho yake, ya kwamba ukiangalia mbele kama ni siasa, wewe ni lazima ufate mkondo wa maji. Tunaona mafloods yanapiga katika Kenya. Ule mkondo wa maji ukiwa unaenda, yale maji vile yanavyoteremka yanabeba kila kitu, yanabeba miti, kila kitu. Kwa hiyo wewe sasa umejipata katika panda hiyo. Hivi sasa utazama, lakini kuvunjika kwa mwiko sio mwisho wa kupika. Kwa hiyo ndugu yangu, mimi nataka kusema ya kwamba sisi kwa upande wa coalition ya NASA haikukuleta hapa na hayo makosa. Makosa hayo yameletwa na chama chako hapa mbele. Kwa hiyo ni jukumu lako sasa ujukumike kuchukua hii punishment ambayo utapewa sasa. Lakini ukumbuke kuna leo na kesho, na tukuombea kila laheri, na mimi sina budi bali kuunga mkono jadala huu. Asante.
Senator Murkomen.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, allow me to make a few comments on this very important motion. And Mr. Speaker, to start with, I want to be very clear. I am opposing this motion. Mr. Speaker, I'm not here to defend my friend, Professor Kindiki, for he may walk his head high, knowing that he is innocent and diligent, even if persecuted so cruelly. The evil that this House does lives after us, Mr. Speaker. Long will it be remembered that this Senate, sworn to defend the Constitution and its institutions, betrayed the Republic in exchange for the meanest comfort. Mr. Speaker, the credibility of this House as the watchdog of public interest, defender of our institutions, and guardian of the rule of law has dramatically and tragically collapsed. Mr. Speaker, the usurpers of our Constitution have not laid any charge to back this disgraceful onslaught, but allege that the affected member of this House has been disloyal. Indefatigable stalwarts who have given their all to the cause, leaders who staked their careers on the daunting struggle to build and protect Jubilee and its government, men and women who stood with our abandoned, besieged, and maligned leaders, party leader and deputy party leader, a time of tribulation at home and abroad, members who have fought tooth and nail for the presidency over 3 electoral contests, servants who unflinchingly stewarded government business successfully through this House, time without number. Today, these people are now being insulted, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order,
as
Senator?
Disloyal.
There's a point of order, Senator Murkomen.
I rise on a point of order to bring it to your attention that the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet is in breach of our standing orders, and in particular, standing order number 90. Mr. Speaker, the provision of standing order number 90 are very clear, and it states that number 90, paragraph 1, no senator shall read a speech, but a senator may read short extracts from written and printed papers in support of an argument. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that my very good friend, the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet...
Senator, relax, let him finish.
My very good friend, the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet, is reading a speech. He's not debating, he's reading a speech. That is prohibited by our standing orders.
Senator Murkomen, observe standing order number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Don't read a speech.
So, Mr. Speaker, today these people are being insulted as disloyal and viciously haunted by captive party. Today, the House has been asked to ratify the injustice. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not here to mourn the fate of my friend, Professor Kindiki, because nothing, Mr. Speaker, and I repeat, nothing can harm a good man in life or in death. I grieve and mourn the deterioration of our democracy. Mr. Speaker, I mourn the serial assassination of our independent institutions, Mr. Speaker, and their replacement with shells, ghosts, and zombies, Mr. Speaker. We know, Mr. Speaker, the argument has been made that Professor Kindiki is disloyal. Mr. Speaker, the epicenter of this motion is that Professor Kindiki has been disloyal. Mr. Speaker, there is no evidence that has been presented in this House to demonstrate that lack of loyalty. Indeed, I served for second half of last term as the deputy to Senator Kindiki, deputy majority leader. And no motion was lost in this House. No government motion was lost in this House. Mr. Speaker, even the first time when I served in the Speaker's panel, no motion was lost by Senator Kindiki in this House as majority leader. Mr. Speaker, as the Speaker of this House, Senator Kindiki distinguished himself as a very committed scholar, Mr. Speaker, determined to protect the institution of the Senate. In fact, from that chair, Mr. Speaker, a number of decisions of the Deputy Speaker have been so weighty that Mr. Speaker has been cited by the Court of Appeal and other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, those who tell us today that Senator Kindiki is disloyal, Mr. Speaker, are the same people who, Mr. Speaker, have opposed his defense of the same loyalty, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not here to mourn Professor Kindiki, but today, Mr. Speaker, I am here to mourn the Senate, not to praise it. Because today's business belongs, Mr. Speaker, to the annals of history's worst mistakes. And Mr. Speaker, I say so because this House has heard the move of the motion. The second of the motion, Mr. Speaker, included. They have over and over again argued, Mr. Speaker, and I wrote it somewhere, that it's about loyalty of the party. If this issue was about loyalty within Jubilee, why is NASA involving itself, Mr. Speaker, in enforcement of loyalty within Jubilee? Do you really think that our competitor, Mr. Speaker, would be so happy to participate in enforcing that loyalty? Mr. Speaker, it's not true. One thing that we decided in this House when we came to the floor of this House is that we were going to do everything humanly possible to ensure that we pull together to move this country forward. And so, Mr. Speaker, allow me 10 seconds to read this verse to Professor Kindiki. As the last, Mr. Speaker, has now known that I am the guy who posts and reads biblical verses. Mr. Speaker, Daniel 3:16-18, and I dedicate it to Professor Kindiki and all who are in his situation. It says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. And Professor Kindiki, verse 18, I emphasize. But even if it does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Mr. Speaker,
Okay. Thank you.
I wish Senator Kindiki the very best. He has a great future.
Okay.
And Mr. Speaker, the future is for those who are courageous enough to swim against the current. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Linturi.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. I say this is an historical moment in this country, in this Senate. Mr. Speaker, I'm here as Kindiki's brother, as Kindiki's closest neighbor, and I believe in good neighborliness, and I believe in the principle of being a brother's keeper. Mr. Speaker, let me remind Kindiki that when we were growing up and before we got circumcised, where I come from, there is a story that we were permanently being told and which was passed over to generations. That, Mr. Speaker, this country is a country of many tribes. And out of the tribes, Mr. Speaker, in this country, we were told, as you engage in relationships, as you go out there looking for a wife to marry, Mr. Speaker, you must be very careful where you are getting your girl from, because there are certain communities, or there are certain other areas in this country where you got a wife, and you are being told that the relationship can be almost predetermined and may not last long. For this matter, Mr. Speaker, this opportunity, this moment has given me an opportunity to remember that history. And that's why I want to remind Kindiki that time has come. Here we are, we were told, and culture is immutable. And when I remember that, I actually feel that how we wish we listened to our forefathers and engaged cautiously in all the kind of relationships that we get ourselves into, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, because it's, and Mr. Speaker, let this not be a laughing matter, Mr. Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Because, Mr. Speaker, those people that have good memory of the history of this country, from the pre-independence times, I want to remind the country that first, Mr. Speaker, immediately after independence, and that's why I must speak passionately about this, the first political assassination was Ameru, General Baimungi. Mr. Speaker, where we are sitting today, if I got Senator Kangata correctly, this has no, the decision we are taking tonight has no basis or will not be decided on the basis of substance, the truth, and the evidence. It's a political decision. Political decisions have consequences. And because political decisions have consequences, we won't go by them. And Mr. Speaker, let me also say that as we look forward, we must be in a position to get more sober now and see how, in the contemplated constitutional reforms, if they will be coming, how we can be able to protect offices of parliament from external influence, because I believe this has given us an opportunity to reflect further on what we are doing. Mr. Speaker, allow me to tell Kindiki that don't be worried. Don't be worried. You are more popular today than you were yesterday in Meru. I can swear that, Mr. Speaker, when I go home tonight and appear in a station, the kind of confidence messages that the people are sending to us are greater than the lack of confidence that is being purported to have been the reason to why Kindiki has to go home. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not worried. We can remember history. And the next political assassination happening here is Kindiki, who is being assassinated by Jubilee Party. Jubilee Party that I think he has served with a lot of diligence. Allow me quote Professor Chinua Achebe in his book, Things Fall Apart. Mr. Speaker, Chinua Achebe said, "A man who calls his kinsmen to a feast does not do to save them from starving. So you are food in their own homes. When we gather together in the moonlight village ground, it's not because the moon, we do not, or we can't see the moon from our compounds. We come together because it is good for kinsmen to do so." And Mr. Speaker, E2 Brutus, those are the ones that turned by Julius Caesar in 44 BC upon his brutal stabbing 23 times by a loyalist. The male notion as us. You too, Mr. Patelinda, you too, Mr. Jubilee, you have stabbed Mr. Kindiki. Rarely a single man done so much, so few. Professor fought for our party. Professor fought for our president. Professor helped us write our new constitution. And in fact, the Jubilee Manifesto. Mr. Speaker, it's a shameful moment in this House.
Okay. Your time is up. Just wind up.
1 minute, Mr. Speaker, remember, is my neighbor, and I have to talk to the people.
Okay.
And
Okay. 1 minute. 1 minute.
I beg you, Mr. Speaker, so that I conclude. It won't even...
Legendary beat. Legendary beat.